smoke my vape.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and I'm just hip as my guest. And we just found out my guest is going to smoke his vape today. And it's funny because I'm an ex-smoker. I haven't smoked in years. But my guest, I'm very excited to have on the show because I got to tell you, people, there's certain songs that resonate with you. And The Boys Are Back in Town is one of them. And my guest played on that. And I don't care how old you are, if you're high school, college, however you are, when you get together with your old buddies and you go to your old haunting grounds, you always think of that song. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about an amazing story about a band called Western Front and an album called Eureka that comes out July 10th. And I can't say it's 40 years in the making because it was made over 40 years ago, but we'll find
Yes.
out. And my guest is Scott Gorham. How you doing, Scott?
Yes, it was 40 years ago. We started this out in 1983, right? And the way it happened was my then brother-in-law and still best friend Bob Stevenberg, drummer for Supertramp, he was doing his first solo album. So I flew in from London to Los Angeles, not knowing who else was going to be there, right? But I walked into the studio, and who was it? My old pal, Marty Walsh. And we were just talking about it, who lived in Burbank, right? I lived in Glendale. They're right next door to each other. We were always in sort of rival bands, not hating each other or anything like that, but it was just weird. He was in that band and I was in that band. And I hadn't seen Marty in years, and there he is, right? So we shook hands and hugged and kissed and all that crap, right? And then we got down to work, and we finished Bobby's stuff pretty quickly. And I still had, fair few days left before I was going to leave. So I said to Marty, I said, we're probably not going to get this chance again. I've got this riff. How about you and I make a song out of it, right? And see what happens. We're in the recording studio here. We're not paying for it. So what do you think? And he just jumped all over that. And it probably took, I don't know, maybe 2 hours to write this song, right? And we both kind of looked at each other and thought, well, that was a bit easy. And I said, well, let's just see if that was a mistake. I've got another riff here. Let's want to try that one. And he said, yeah. And once again, it went really quickly, right? And I made a joke saying, "Well, I guess we're going to have to get somebody in here to sing this stuff now." And he, right? And he went, "I've got the guy. I know the perfect guy." And I'm like, "Whoa, really?" He goes, "Yeah, his name is Moon Calhoun, right?" And I just love that name, Moon Calhoun, right? Who also married a girl named June. So it was Moon and June Calhoun, right? Wow. Uh, so we got Moon in a couple of days later, a great guy. Uh, and he was even a greater guy when he opened up his mouth and sang. And I thought, oh my God, this guy is amazing, right? So we started writing more song, and another friend of us, ours, Dennis O'Donnell, he was great with the lyrics and helping with the vocal performances and all that. Um, then other people like Daryl Verduzco and Derek Bergman on keyboards, who was amazing. So, but the problem here was, I was on a time frame, very limited time, right? I needed to get back to London. And the way I remembered it is Lizzy, who was still in the band, we were on our very last world tour. And I needed to get back to London to finish up because we are going to go to the next stop was going to be Scandinavia, right? So I had to get on the plane, and really the album, and I don't know if we were thinking in album terms, but it was 3 songs short. But I knew how good these guys were, and they didn't need me to finish off the 3 songs, which they did. And here's where the confusion comes in. Uh, there was I did another interview with another journalist, and he said, "Yep, it says here you guys worked on this album for 20 years," and I'm like, What are you talking about? 20 years. The longest I've ever worked on any album was like maybe 3 months, you know? So what he meant was because the other three guys were working so hard, they had to find time to get back together again in certain time periods to to finish off these next three songs. And it took another 20 years to actually finish off those three songs, right? So that's kind of the synopsis of the whole thing.
Now, was there any when you guys were creating that first the album, when you're creating the album, was there interest from record companies? Because you were with Thin Lizzy, you have someone from Supertramp, you have Moon Calhoun. You can't, I mean, you're right, you can't go wrong with the name Moon Calhoun. And they
Right.
had a son named Boone. It'd be perfect. I'd be happy. But what what was there interest? Was there any heat coming from the industry for you guys?
Well, obviously we had talked about it. Sure, we would love to turn this into a somehow a full-time thing and turn it into an album. But the problem is that you need management to engineer and maneuver your group of guys around record company people and all of that, which we did not have. Um, as far as I know, before I left, we hadn't talked to any record companies at this point. The reason this got put out was another guitar player, session guitar player, heard this stuff, right? And he said, "Oh my God, you've got to put this out." I mean, this yes, it was done, 40 years ago, but it still has this sound to it that people are going to want to hear because it's been played so well and put together so well. So he goes, "I tell you what, I'll talk to my people at Mascot Records. You can have a meeting with them, show them the stuff, and we'll see what happens, right?" And that's pretty much what happened. Is Marty? He got Marty a meeting with the mascot people. They fell in love with it, and it was pretty much a done deal straight off the bat. So it's too bad that wasn't done in 1983. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's crazy. Now I want to know. Okay, like anything, you're an artist, and I want to talk about your art later. I know you have these cool T-shirts coming out,
Okay,
but I want to
great.
talk about that. But you're an artist, and we all evolve as artists. I do stand-up comedy. I got back into it, and my act is completely different than it was when I started. For you, when you listen to your guitar playing from 40 years ago, do you notice different? I mean, do you sit there and go, "Oh man, I wouldn't be doing that right now"? I mean, what is it like for you to listen? Because it's a snapshot or a video per se of the past. How do you judge your? Do you sit there and go, "Oh, now I would have done this"? Because it has to be crazy because it's 40 years ago.
Well, there's something, Steve. There's always that. You know, I have done albums where it was like the next week. I've gone, oh my God, I wish I would have done this. Why didn't I think of that at the time, right? So obviously, there's going to be things 40 years later. You're going to go, well, maybe I should have done it this way, or taken a little more time on this one here. But as a whole, when I listen to it, I'm thinking, well, it's actually pretty good. I'm not ashamed of this at all. In fact, I'm really pretty proud of this album and all the guys and all that. But I know what you're saying. Uh, your style does change, no matter what, and it has to change because, as an artist or, whether it's drawing or it's playing a musical instrument, in the ensuing years, you just get better. You just can't help it. You just are a better whatever, right? So you're always going to want to, go back and, I want to redo this and redo that. But I'm kind of glad we didn't do that with the Western Front. We just left it as it is. And I was always wondering what were the comments going to be of people listening to this 40-year-old album. Oh, this is a pile of, why did they even bother? But we got none of that. It was all this absolutely spot on, encouraging, rhetoric that we got from everybody. And it was great.
I listened to it and I enjoyed it. And I'll tell you, like, my favorite song is Pain. And But it's funny, some of the songs though, because it does have that 80s feel, and you can see him being in one of those 80s cop movies. Like just some of them,
Yeah,
like The Chase, and of course there's a ballad on it because it's any 80s album needs a ballad. But
right.
do you have any favorites when you're looking back at it now? Because once again, you probably forget playing on half of them because we forget that. I was talking to a comic I
Yeah.
worked with years ago in Philly, and he told me this bit. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you did this, whatever. I'm like, I forgot. Is there any songs that like you completely just forgot about because you play so much and you've been on the road and you've been on such a great career? Is there
Yeah.
songs you went, holy crap, man, that's a cool song. I forgot I even did that.
Well, it's funny that you say that because when Marty sent me over the first mixes, right, a year ago, I had completely forgotten a lot of those songs, right? I was like, oh yeah, that's right, there was that one. I'm like, well, no kidding. Yeah, I love that one in the studio. There was a lot of that going on about a year ago when I was, like I said, when I first heard it, right? A favorite song. Did you ask me what my favorite song was? Is that
Yeah,
what?
what is when you like it, when you look, is there a song that stands out to you that you just said, man, I really dig this. I really like my work on this.
Well, I would have to say this third single that we've got coming out. And guess what, Steve? I can't remember the name of it.
Well, that's all right.
Oh
I
my
know
God.
the first two singles. I'll see if I can draw your memory. It was "Set Me Free" and then "Pain." They were the first two. So
Right?
it's all right. So people look for that. That's if when you see this interview, when you listen to the album, Scott's favorite song was the third single. You know that.
That he can't remember the name of. Oh my God. All right.
So when first of all, I want to talk about when you started playing music, but let's talk about the art. I saw that you on your Facebook that you're now making T-shirts, and it's funny because I talked to Chris Mars, who is with the Replacements, and he does art now. That's his main concern. He doesn't play music anymore. He does art, and his art's very dark and it's different. And your art's somewhat dark. It's not like you're not making smiley faces. But tell me when you
Right.
started, were you always a creative painting as an artist, or was this something you took up later in life?
Well, I always kind of did it in maybe in a cartoony, jokey kind of way, but one year we were touring we were in Amsterdam, right? Beautiful day. I'm going to go out for a walk, right? So was walking down the main thoroughfare in Amsterdam, and it was really great. And I ran into this one shop that I couldn't tell what it was, right? But the window just looked amazing how they had done their displays, right? And it wasn't that I knew what it was. I just walked in out of curiosity, right? And as soon as I walked in, I went, "Oh God, it's an art shop. That's what it is." And this girl comes up to me, really nice. She goes, "Oh, can I help you with anything?" And uh, well, well, yeah. Do you have a pencil section? She goes, "Yeah, come on, follow me." Right, and brought me over, and she explained the different pencils, uh, and she goes, "And with that, you want this kind of paper over here." And now she's got me right. I'm like, oh, I'm excited now. So okay. So in the end, I walked out of the hotel with nothing, and I came back with a couple of pads of art paper, a couple of boxes of pencils and erasers and all that. And it kind of started in earnest right there, right? But it's still in secrecy. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody in the band that I was doing this. Uh, my wife or girlfriend at the time, I did not tell them. I call it under the bed art, right? If anybody knocked on my door in the hotel room, I would shuffle around and put it under the covers and, yeah, what can I help you with? So nobody knew, right? Until, wow, it was about 4 years ago, and I pulled out this picture that I thought was actually pretty good, and I wanted to get some feedback. So I went to my wife and I said, "Hey, Christine, what do you think of this?" Right? She goes, "Wow, that's really good, man. Who did that?" And I went, "What do you mean, who did that?" And that I did that. She goes, "Yeah, right." And I grabbed the picture from her and stomped off upstairs and didn't show her again anything. But it got her curiosity up, and she really wanted to look at all of it. Now she's a PR person, my wife, you know. Uh, so she goes, we really need to do something with this. I went, no, 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 that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. It took her, Steve, it took her 3 years to talk me into it, to going public with my drawings, right? And we did this exhibition, and an actor friend came up with me. I was scared to death, right? Because when you're in a band, you've got four other guys there. And if something goes wrong, you lean on everybody else, right? And everybody, that's okay, not a problem. But and you know that as an artist, you're the Lone Ranger, you know. You take all the hand claps or you take all the boos, right? There's just no way around it, right? And I've got in front of me, I'm sitting on my stool in this club, and there's 250 people out there, right? And I was scared to death. I would have rather have been at Shea Stadium with no rehearsals at all, packed out and walked straight out, right? I would have felt more confident than sitting on that stool in front of those 250 people. But it actually did a lot of good. There was a lot of really good reviews and all that. So it was fine. And I was like, okay, dodged a bullet on that one, right? But yeah, I found out really quickly the difference between a drawing artist and a musician artist really quickly.
Now, do you think, okay, because you were in Thin Lizzy and you're a no musician, on one hand, that will bring people out to see the art. It already has that instance. But on the other hand, I think sometimes people can be more of a prick because they think, well, what's he stepping in our area for? So I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Have you got any like
Yeah.
people go, stick the guitar licks? Have you had anyone, or has anyone been really compensating? Because with the fame comes critique, more harshness.
No, I totally get that. And over the last couple of years, I've gotten to know some really, really good artists, and I found out they depend on selling their material to, make the rent or buy the food or whatever, right? And I've always said in no way want to step into their territory and take any kind of money away from them or anything. And when I explain that to them, all these people are really cool. They're great, and they understand the insecurities of the whole art world, right? So it's all good. But yeah, you got to be ready for if there's going to be any criticism, you got to grow a bit of a thick skin.
Now, what made you decide to put them on T-shirts? Because I saw on your Facebook page you're selling T-shirts now.
Yep, yep. We've kind of been doing that all along. I'm not really. I don't really know if what I do suits t-shirts. I don't know. But definitely to frame it, they definitely look great. Framed up and all that. But yeah, I thought, okay, what the hell? We'll go with the t-shirt thing and see what happens. And we have sold many, many more t-shirts than the framed article, right? That might be a pricing thing, I don't know, but yeah, I was really surprised with that.
Now, I want to get to your music career. You started out as a bass player in Glendale, right? So tell
Yeah,
me your
yeah.
path to being a bass player in Glendale, to become a guitarist, becoming in Thin Lizzy and touring the world. Because you don't think, you know, it's you don't think of a lot of times guys don't leave Glendale to go to overseas. So what happened? You started as a bass player. What got you into music? What turned you into music? Were you a little kid, or what was it that made you pick up the instrument for the first time?
Well, man, this is a big story, Steve.
It's all
This is
right.
a
I love
long
big
one, right?
stories.
Well, I can always remember, even from a child, loving music. my mom used to laugh at when like Elvis Presley would come on the radio, and I'd mime the air guitar, the song and all that, and to the point where my father one Christmas I was 9 years old, and I looked under the tree, and there was the most odd shaped present I'd ever seen. I couldn't understand what could that be, right? And my dad goes, "Scott, this is for you," right? Oh, okay. And he tore it open, and there it was. It was a little silver toned cat gut string acoustic guitar. And I looked at my dad and I thought, I don't know what to do with this yet, right? He goes, "Let me show you." And my dad took the guitar and he played two or three chords on it that blew my mind. Oh my God, my dad knows how to play guitar. And I think what happened, he went to the guy where he bought the guitar. He says, "Can you teach me two, maybe three really simple chords so I can show my son?" Right. And that's what he did. But so that kind of, piqued my interest, straight off the bat, 9 years old. My hands were too small though to get around the neck of the guitar. That's just the way it was, right? But one year in junior high school, we went to a thing called the sock hop. You know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't wear your hard shoes because it's usually in a basketball court, and they don't want marks from your shoes on the. So you wear your socks, right? But in this particular sock hop, that really sounds 50s to me, the sock hop. But I saw that there was a band over in the corner. I could see the cymbals and the drums, and there was amplifiers over there with guitars leaning up against them. And it was like a magnet. I went straight over to the stage, made sure that I was right at front. And when these guys came on, honestly, Steve, I was hypnotized watching these guys. How does that guy know what that guy is going to do there? At what time, at what point do you actually come in and play? I had all these questions, right? But the very next day, a couple of friends of mine, good friends, Steve Schragi, he says, "We need to start a band." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, well, that's a great idea, right?" He goes, "Well, I play guitar. Jim here is in the school band. He plays drums. I don't know how good that's going to be, the drummer in the school band, right? But he was actually pretty good." And I said, "Great, great. So what am I going to play?" And Steve goes, "Well, you're going to play the bass." I went, "Great, man. What's that?" And he explained it to me. And I thought, great. I had no idea what the names of the strings or where I was going at all on this instrument. And Steve Schragi, who was an excellent guitar player, even at his, 12, 13-year-old status there, he started to give me little guitar lessons. And the more he taught me, the more I just dove into the whole music thing. I just couldn't get enough, right? And I did that for, a fair few years, got pretty decent at the old bass guitar. And then unfortunately, Steve got killed in a motorcycle accident, right? And his dad was like a sort of a second father to me. Listen, I know you were great friends with Steve, so he wouldn't mind me doing this. I want to give you his guitar, right? And I was, oh my God, this is amazing. Right? I still have it today. Right? I would never sell it. And I just started banging away on that guitar, started to go to auditions as a guitar player, which was a whole new world for me, but I was bound and determined to, make this work. No lessons, no musical knowledge, nothing. But that's the kind of the way we did it back then. You didn't really take lessons, I guess. But it was my sister and we always, dreamt of going to England. This is where the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who, all these really great musicians, that's where they come from, right? This island, off the Atlantic Ocean, right? Uh, that's that was the destination point, right? And you got to remember, Steve, in 1975, 76, or 74, really, Americans didn't really travel like that. They just did not get on planes and go to England or any of that. So my sister was already there. Bobby was already there. They were married and they had a place. So I did have a place to go to. Um, but it was so different. I just couldn't believe how different England was to Glendale, California, right? Or Newport Beach or all the other places that I ended up living in. But I remember thinking as soon as I got out of the train station there, I'd never seen so much red brick in my life. It was just everything was made out of red brick. Because in California, it's all timber, right? Except for the chimneys. But and I started a band in London, and I would go to the pubs, right? Because really being in America at that point, 1974, you were kind of exotic, if you know what I mean by that. There just weren't a whole lot of us in the country, right? In fact, at one point, I was the only American musician who was in the musicians union at one point. but uh, but I would go into these pubs and put on my best American accent. Say, yeah, just over from Los Angeles. I got my American band here, and only two of us were American, right? And we were wondering if you got a free night here. We'd love to get up on in your pub here and play. And the guy would go, oh, hell yeah, man. How about Wednesdays? You can have without even hearing us, you can have every Wednesday night, right? Oh, okay. So we did that. I think we were playing something like 5 nights a week, just getting gigs that way. Um, and a lot of the shows or gigs that we would do, so I could get up and meet as many musicians as I possibly could, because now I only had something like 40 days left on my visa, and then I was going to get kicked out of the country, right? Because you get 6 months, right? So I would get on the microphone and I'd say, right, I could see a lot of you guys out there, you're musicians. I could see you want to get up on this stage. So I tell you what, we're going to be here next Thursday. If you play bass, bring your bass guitar with you. Play guitar, bring your guitar, drumsticks, and we'll get up and we'll all have a jam together. Purely so I could meet as many of these guys as I possibly could, right? And one of the guys that did come up was an Irish guy. His name was Ruin O'Loughlin. That's a great name, isn't it? Ruin O'Loughlin. He was a great guy. And we got up there. He came up. We had a jam. And afterwards, we were having a beer. He goes, I know this Irish band. They're looking for a guitar player. And they're already pretty well known, but they're starting to take a dip, but they're still really good. Would you be interested in going down and maybe having a jam with them? And like I said, I had 30, 40 days left. I was like, yes, give me the number and I will go down and have a jam with these guys, which I did. Uh, and they, they were rehearsing at a place called the Iroko Club, which was an African dinner joint, right? And I remember walking down this dark hallway, and in the end, it was all lit up, and I could see all these black guys in flowered shirts and striped trousers, laying out, the silverware and plates and all that for that night, right? And as I'm looking at that, from the side, I hear, "Hey, are you Scott?" And I turned around. It was this really tall black guy with this big smile on his face. I went, yeah. He goes, hey, I'm Phil. I play the bass guitar and I sing with Thin Lizzy. And I'm like, oh man, a black guy in the band? And this is a rock band? 1974, which you did not get, right? But I looked at Phil and that smile, he caught me, man. He grabbed me with that smile. I thought, I really like this guy. I don't even know who he is, but I like this guy, right? Come on in, man. I'll introduce you to the rest of the guys, right? Oh yeah. Okay. And we walk in, and he yells over to the two brides. He goes, "Hey guys, this is Scott. He's from California. He's going to get up and jam with us." And they both looked at me and went, "Okay, yeah, right." And I thought, "Oh, this is really friendly." I don't know if this is going to work out here, right? But the thing I found out afterwards was they'd already gone through 25 guitar players auditions, and I was number 26 walking in. And they're just thinking, well, number 26 is going to get booted right out of here, right? But another thing I didn't know, they were taping this whole audition. And apparently that night, well, not apparently, they did. They all went back to Phil's place, had a listen. Phil called me up and said, we've been listening to the tapes, and we all agree that you're the guy. What do you think? Do you want to be in Thin Lizzy? And I couldn't get the word yes out of my mouth quick enough, right? Because while playing with them at this audition, I'm realizing just how good each one of these guys were, right? Each guy had his own talent, right? And he was really good at it, right? And I wanted to be part of this whole thing. And now I am. They've just invited me into their world. So, and that's where we started.
So you start and you're playing now. Now Jailbreak comes out and you guys really blow up. Now in the beginning, the record company put you on the tour. Who are you touring with in the early days when you're with the band? Who are some of the bands? I know you toured with Bob Seger, I believe, but who are some of the other bands you toured with?
Yep. The first name band was, God, my memory's shit. You ain't seen nothing yet. Wang, wang.
Uh,
Da-da-da-da-da.
Bachman
Can you
Turner
remember the
Overdrive.
name?
Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Yes, right. And the other guitar player from Brian Roberts used to call him Bachman Turner overweight, which was kind of mean. But they were great. They were real good to us, right? And we had a thing where one of the guys in our particular road crew came back into our dressing room one night and he says, "Yeah, I know you got you're on in about 5 minutes, but there's nobody out there." And Phil goes, "Well, let's give it another 10 minutes. Come back in 10 minutes and let us know how it is audience wise." 10 minutes goes, comes back and goes, "Well, maybe there's like maybe four or five people there. That's about it." Ah, well, let's give it another 15 minutes, right? Now, we were really naive, right? We had no idea about unions and fines and any of that because we had none of that in England, right? Or Ireland. So when we got done with our set that night, and we walked on a half hour late, for God's sakes, that meant the BTO had to carve a half hour off of their set, right? Which we didn't know, right? But their manager looked at our manager, pointed at him, did that, right? Out in the hallway, grabbed them by the shirt, slammed them up against the wall, and he said, if you are one minute late, again, you guys are off this tour. And we thought, oh my God, that'd be a lesson taught really quick, right? So we asked, which was really kind of a genius thing. We asked, can we go on 15 minutes early? Not caring if there's anybody out there at all, right? And this was to get us acclimatized to the much bigger stage than we were ever used to, right? And we really, honestly, Steve, we did not mind if there was nobody out there. We treated it as like a rehearsal, right? So, and that's what we did for the rest of the tour. We went on 15 minutes early every night, right? And it was a good move.
Yeah, because yeah, you're right. It acclimated you to the stage and it made you tighter. It made because you're and you when you don't see anyone there, it's hard to concentrate, but it makes you concentrate more because you go, oh, no one's listening. You're screw this. So you guys start getting bigger. I got to ask you as an American. I know the band played on Top of the Pops, and when I talk to England musicians from England, that's a real big thing. Okay, because they grew up like how we grew up watching the Tonight Show. They grew up
Right.
watching Top of the Pops. What was it like for you? Was it just like, or did you know it was a big thing? Because you guys played it a bunch of times, I believe.
Yeah. No, of course, I knew it was a big thing. Top of the Pops really was the only game in town. If you got on to Top of the Pops, you were going to sell a buttload of merchandise. It was just a given, right? So you wanted to go on that show. As cheesy and crappy as that TV show was, you needed to do it. There were just no other musical outlets, especially on TV at the time. Yeah, there was radio, lots of radio, right, but no TV. So Top of the Pops was it. And as an American, I knew exactly that we needed this, so yeah.
Now the boys are back in town. I read it. You guys, no one really wanted it on the album first. Or tell me the story about that, because that's, as I said, if that's synonymous. Like me, when me and my friends from college, got together a few years ago, we think of the boys are back in town. We went down to down there to the Jersey Shore where my friend lived and our school was down there. And it's just one of those songs that people know. That, and I'm thinking that and Jailbreaker, probably the most known songs by Thin Lizzy by Americans. It's probably different over in
Unfortunately,
Ireland, and what's that?
right? I say unfortunately.
So why do you
They're
say
the
that?
best known, right?
Why do you say that?
Anyway,
Unfortunately, why do you say that? Unfortunately,
because if you go deeper into the albums, there's so many really great songs that we did come up with, right? But the boys are back in town by far took precedence over everything. It was used in Toy Story, one and two, a load of commercials at the time. Um, it was used in sporting events all over the world, right? So it wasn't a song that you wanted to get away from, but can we try something else? We're much more than the one or two songs, right? Which eventually did happen. I mean, we had something like 14 or 15 top 10 singles, around the world. Same with albums, top 20, 10 albums around the world. So, but it still comes back down to the boys are back in town, right? And I'm okay with that. I really am. But I'd love people to go, yeah, that I really love the song Bad Reputation or Waiting for an Alibi or something like that.
well, why didn't you guys want to put that on the album? I heard it was originally a protest song. The boys back in town and changed, and then they added your two the guitar leads. I mean, tell me about the story. What happened? Because it's so weird when you hear something that you guys were against, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we all know that song.
Well, honestly, Steve, we weren't against it, right? But as we were, demoing it, at this point, there were no harmony guitars on it. I think Phil had tentatively titled it G.I. Joe, right? What the hell is that, Um, but the lyrics had stayed the same. So, and we knew that it was Jailbreak was going to be this make or break album for us. It was our third album. We were told numerous times by record companies, management, even fans, right? Man, you got to come up with a single, man, or you're done, right? So we rented a this house that had a barn next to it, and we set up in there for 3 weeks, and we wrote and recorded, demoed. I think it was like around 26 songs, right? So to get really, in tight with some of them, like the boys are back in town to try to get all the harmony guitars and all that worked out. You just kind of let that. We'll get that later, right? But the one of the guys from the management company came down and said, "Right, well, let's see what you got, right?" And we'd already made out a list of what we thought was going to go on the album, right? Uh, so he took a listen to it. And he quite liked what he heard, but he goes, "How come this one here, this Boys Are Back?" He had changed the title at that point. How come that's not on the list? We thought, well, there's no real reason, right? It's just kind of laying there right now, kind of not doing anything. He goes, yeah, but you know something? I really love the lyrics on this and the way Phil sang it and all that. I think you ought to maybe work on this a bit more and include this on the album, right? And we thought, well, okay, well, there's a vote for that song, so we'll do that, right? And that's when Robbo and I, Brian Robertson, started to work on the harmonies on that song because Phil said, when I do the vocal break, there needs to be a guitar break in there also, something like it goes, something like do da do da do da, and I'm looking at him going do da do da, what the that that even in the same time frame, you know? He goes, well, something like that. And I was listening to what Brian Downey, the drummer, was doing, which was more of a shuffle, right? So I kind of took what Phil was going to do, and I just rolled it, but and Phil turned around, yeah, man, that's the one. Let's work on that, right? So Bravo says, right, I'll put the harmonies on it, and uh, and we'll do it that way, right? And it got worked on a little bit more, and then more to where finally it came out as it was, right? But yeah, that's it was one of those songs that really was not going to be on the album. To actually, thank God it was on the album.
Now, you said you changed from the length. You changed the progression of the guitar. Did you do that a lot with the band? And is that just instinctual? Like you hear something and your mind says, okay, I need to go this way. Because I always wonder, I'm always fascinated by guitar players when you hear something out of the blue and you go, oh my God, that is so cool. Is that just something that comes to you? Like you're jamming with a song and all of a sudden you go, this is not right. I mean, is that instinctual or is that something that you learn or what is that?
It's probably an instinctual kind of thing. It's a feel that you get. Uh, Instead of doing it this way, how about if I do it that way, right? And oh yeah, that way is a hell of a lot better. That actually feels right. There's a lot of that goes on. It's why the rehearsals are so important. It's why demoing is so important because you can take these things home with you, listen to them more intently with your guitar on. Um, yeah, it's just it's there's a lot of instinct, but it's kind of a learned instinct. You know, it's hopefully what's going to be right and what's not going to be right.
Now, Thin Lizzy eventually broke up. There was a lot of drug use. When did that start? Because you always hear
Oh, I was
stories.
wondering when you were going to bring that up.
No,
Oh,
I'm just wondering because I
no,
talked to a lot of musicians and and I have friends who are in programs and it's a matter of like there's one actor who had his defining moment was when he was doing so much cocaine that his baby seemed like his baby knew when he was on blow and he said I can't do that anymore. And this guy was a pretty
right.
big TV star in the '80s, late '70s. So you guys had issues, but did it ever hurt your professionalism? Did you guys ever miss shows, or did you feel like you were still you were producing quality material? So it's one of those things you're probably thinking, well, hey, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Right. Now I'll tell you what happened, Steve. It's you know, I was bad, but Phil was even worse, right? He would lose his voice every once in a while, that kind of thing. Playing got like really sloppy at times. And some kid had handed me a live recording that he did himself, right? And said, "Hey, man, check this out. I recorded you guys," right? Thinking that I was going to go, "Wow, this is great." But when I listened to it, I thought, "Oh my God, this is freaking terrible, man." And then I heard another one, a few weeks later, it was as bad. And I'm thinking, if this keeps going on, because we prided ourselves on the whole live thing, uh, much more than the studio albums. Our whole domain was the live performance, right? And here I am, I'm listening to things that are so subpar, it's frightening, right? So I was desperate to get off the crap. I really, really wanted to get off the drugs, and I'd had enough, right? But when I saw what was happening to the band, to the collective, I thought, oh, we gotta sort this out. We gotta somehow. So I mentioned to Phil, I said, uh, we need to take a break. We got to put ourselves right. Things are going wrong right now. We worked so hard, Phil, to get ourselves into this position, and we're almost kind of throwing it away because of this bullshit that we're doing. We gotta find both you and I gotta find a way to get the hell out of this crap, right? So I suggested, why don't we take a break? Well, a lot of bands do it. They walk away for a year. or whatever, come back together, and they're even stronger with better album, whatever, right? And he was adamant that was never going to happen, never ever going to happen, right? And he kept telling me, he goes, Scott, he said this for years. If you ever quit the band, that's it. We're out. We're done. We're over with, right? And I kept saying to him, Phil, I am not going to quit Thin Lizzy. You don't got to worry about that. But he sees that I'm serious about this, right? We either do this the right way, or yeah, I'm going to have to walk, because I got my own health to worry about. So he said, this is great. He says, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. So let's do this, right? We'll do, we'll get another guitar player in because whoever was the last, Snowy White, he was gone. I said, we'll get another guy in. I know who to get, which was John Sykes. And we'll do another album and we'll do another world tour. And while we're on the world tour, we will announce that, we're going to be taking a break for a while. Are you okay with that? And I said, yeah, I absolutely am, because I got a confirmation from him that he was going to meet me halfway on this, right? But as I was leaving his house, I just realized what I had done. It wasn't like we were going to take a break, walk away right now. No, no, we were going to do another album, another world tour. He kind of bamboozled me into this thing, right? But I'm glad he did, because the Thunder and Lightning album, it was a good album, and we actually did have a good tour. Uh, and but the problem is that tour seemed to be going longer and longer and longer. But it did finally come to an end. And Phil and I shook hands at the airport. I said, "You got to find a way, man. You really do, right?" And we gave each other a hug, and we parted, right? I found a system that worked for me. It was called the black box system, which sends electrode shocks to your endorphin gland, and get your pain receptors back online, right? And a year later, I was desperate to see Phil. He's one of my best friends in the whole world. And I called him up, and he goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, come on over tomorrow, right?" So I came over the next day, and he looked horrible. I mean, he looked really bad. He hadn't even tried, right? And I remember Phil looking at me going, "Man, you look great. You look really good." I said, "Yeah, and I feel really good. You can come with me and you can do this also. Why don't you go with me?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, let me think about that for a while." And of course he didn't. And I don't know, it was like maybe a year and a half later, he died. So we were never able to fulfill what we actually started out in the first place, what we agreed to. So it's always haunted me a little bit. Well,
But
not
you
a little bit, a lot.
but you did your part. That's the thing. I mean, in all honesty, you kept your part of the bargain, and you can't help people. I know people who've had. I had a heart issue a while back, and I changed my lifestyle. I know people who have it. And I go, man, what are you doing? Like, take your meds. Oh, I don't need my meds. No, you take your damn meds. You got to take that. So you did what you
Yeah.
did. Now, when it comes to Thin Lizzy, what do you think endeared people to your band? Because you had a devout following, you still have a following, and now what's crazy is, as you said, you may look at Toy Story and one and two and say, "Oh, that song's in there," but that brings a whole new generation. And I know how kids are now. Kids, like, they hear one song and they get, "Oh, I gotta find this song." I mean, you see a song that's on a movie, it's a hit, and all of a sudden record sales pop up as people go. I mean, so what do you
Yeah.
think endeared? Was it Phil? Was it your sound? Was it the two lead guitars? What was endearing to people that still makes you guys stand up to this day?
Boy, if I knew that, I would bottle it and sell it to everybody else. Yeah, got the answer for you. There you go. Just pay up. I don't know. I think a lot of it was Phil's personality. He had this great magnetic personality on stage. I also think probably it was the honesty that we portrayed with the live audiences. There was nothing ever completely over the top, uh, like you see today with the dancing girls and the troops of horn sections and all that. Uh, it was all pretty honest, right? And I think people really appreciated that. Even the punk bands used to hang out with this, right? Because they appreciated what we kind of represented in a way, you know? And we loved them too because they were even more honest than we were, you know? So, yeah, like I say, if I knew the complete answer to that, I would be online selling that and being a vastly much richer person than I am today.
Now, what's up with Western Front? Do you guys want? Would you guys consider a tour? Would you consider gigs? I mean, because if the album and it's a good album, I'm telling you, and it's got that '80s sound. And right now, '80s are the biggest thing in music. Tours, all these '80s bands are touring together. And when you say from Thin Lizzy, from Supertramp, from all this stuff, what do you guys have you talked about possibly like going out on the road and maybe playing it live?
Right. Well, no, we haven't. And really, because you can't just form the band up and just jump out on the road and hope everything's going to be okay. No, you've got to wait to make sure that you can actually sell tickets. It's very, very expensive to go out on the road. I think most people don't realize how expensive being out on the road is. With lighting crews and sound crews and your stage crew, even travel insurance for all of these people, trucking, the hotel bills, all these they pile up, right? So you have to know almost to the dime, what you're going to make to make sure that this thing works and you don't go broke while you're doing the thing that you really love doing, right? Which I'm sure has happened to probably several bands. They get so caught up in what they're doing, they just jump out, and then at the end of it, somebody hands them a bill, right? And then there they are slitting their wrists, wondering why they ever did that in the first place, right? But I'm never going to say never. If we can get enough sales on this record and enough attention and there's the want there, yeah, why not? But you gotta wait. So we'll see.
One final question I always ask my guests this, and it can be personal, it can be professional, it can be both. When you look back at your career, you've done so much. You've been in bands, you've traveled the world, you're an artist, things like that. You've gotten sober, you seem like you have a very long marriage. What are a few things that make you proud? When you look back at your life, what makes you proud?
Wow. Well, I think we brought a lot of smiles to a lot of people's faces. I've talked to so many people, for decades now, and they well and truly just love the band, and it's a great feeling being in a band that people just love. I would hate to have been in a band where people were constantly going, "Yeah, you were okay, but you could have done a little better, But we do get a lot of praise and all that, so that makes me feel extremely proud. Uh, and I'd love, what I would really love is, the Hall of Fame, not for myself. I would love to see Phil Lynott himself in the Hall of Fame. He was one of those guys who's probably one of the first black rock guys in the whole system. I can't remember. Well, I think maybe there were one or two other black guys playing the rock genre, but Phil was like committed to it. I mean, absolutely committed. So I would love to see his name in the Hall of Fame. Whether that can happen, I don't know.
Well, hopefully it
I'm
will.
not
Well,
really
this
sure. I'm not really sure how the Hall of Fame works, even.
I don't even know. It's so funny. We went to see me and my wife went to Cleveland last year, and we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we had gone to see UB40 in Philly because Robin Campbell was on my show. And we said, "Oh, we saw your guitar." And he's like, Yeah, I lent it to them. They're not giving it back. I'm not giving it to them. And it's just weird how it works. So when you hear a musician goes, he's like, I want my goddamn guitar back. So, well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time, Scott. People, the
Sure.
album, Western Front Eureka, comes out July 10th. Go check it out. Go follow Scott on Facebook. Go buy some of his t-shirts and buy some of his art. It's cool art. Put it on your wall. So check him out. Check out all Thin Lizzy albums. Listen to them. Also, go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find 1,065 episodes on there. You can email me at coopertalk.net. Also, Lawsuits and Lessons is another podcast I host with my entertainment lawyer friend, John Fagerholm. We talked to a lot of top entrepreneurs. So check that out on YouTube. Look up Lawsuits and Lessons. So anyway, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.